Hello and welcome again to another exciting episode with the Crotchety Old Men podcast. Hey, I'm Gary Smith, one of the co-hosts of the Crotchety Old Men, and joining me right now today is my main partner, George Crumley. Top of the day to you, Mr. Crumley.
Top of the day to you, Smitty. How you doing today?
Man, I'm doing exceedingly well. Every time I'm in your presence, man, I feel good all over again. And I feel smarter too.
Mark. Well, that's because we're bringing, information to our base that you don't get everywhere. You get
Yeah.
bits and pieces of things, but we try to bring some information that's going to help them on a day-to-day travels as they do. They go through this financial world. So, what are we talking about today?
Well, George, I thought that today would be a good time for us to talk about the decision of the NAR meaning the National Association of Realtors, that has been captivating the headlines for the past, I guess, about 6 months or so, and understand that they finally came to a settlement, about 1.8 billion or 400 some odd $1 million, whatever that fee is. And so I thought maybe we would explore that. Let's take a look at some of the pros and cons of, what I'm saying, of how it's going to affect not only the consumers, but hey, actually, what impact will it have on the real estate community? So, what do you
That's a
think?
great subject, and as always, want to first, make sure everybody knows we are not attorneys. Okay, everything that you're going to hear is based on our involvement in that situation. I am a licensed real estate agent, and have been dealing with this, like you said, for the last 6 months through the agency, through my broker. So I've got some limited knowledge on firsthand knowledge on what's going on with that, and as involved in real estate on a daily basis, being licensed also, it's something that's affecting us in different ways.
Yep, absolutely. So let's first start off, I think, about how did this come about? This whole angst between sellers selling their property and paying agent fees. Where does this originate from?
Well, it's just been a traditional thing that the seller pays the commission for both his representation and the buyer representation. I've been in real estate for 20 years, and that's always been the norm. But one of the things that's also understanding, it's always been a negotiable. Okay, it's a negotiable percentage that's always been negotiable. So that portion of it has not changed. What is now proposed to change, and I know you said this, they have reached a settlement. I think the date, sometime in July, is when the I don't know if that's an appeal date, but that's when I guess the ruling is supposed to actually go into effect. Even though I'm seeing some of that now on some of the listings, as far as the traditional 3%, which would be offered to a agent representing a buyer. I've seen things of 0. I've seen 1%. I've seen 2.5%. So some agencies are already trying to enact some parts of that because, like I said, here again, it's a negotiable. So that leaves us. Where does the industry go? I mean, what can we expect? Is that going to reduce the number of agents? Is that going to hurt home sales? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, number one, it will certainly reduce the number of agents. Last time I checked, there's about 1.5 million agents out there,
You say
and
that so convincingly, Smitty. You got an inside track, huh?
well, yeah, I know the work ethics of most of those agents. Okay, and I'm gonna beat up on them because I don't want them sending us nasty emails and throwing darts at the crotchety old men. But hey, the facts are what the facts are. We're talking about sellers brought this. People who are actually paying those commissions brought this lawsuit up. So, as being on the seller side, I'm going to speak from a seller's perspective here. Yes, it's going to eliminate those agents who don't work, okay, or don't work hard. Which is what will happen is that, in my opinion, that the services that are provided by a realtor is going to be valued. More value is going to be certainly highly respected, and it's going to help. I believe it's going to help homeowners sell their properties quicker, without a whole lot of hassle and all that good stuff going back. And more importantly, it's not going to impact the value of the house. And it's going to help agencies, those who are professional in the agency, they're going to double in more deals, okay? And they're going to make money. So they're going to make more money. But from a seller's perspective, it's going to reduce our costs, okay? Because why should I pay another agent to bring me a client? And I know that's right, the top of the argument here or the discussion in most cases, that you're paying for that value versus you're paying for that value twice. That's the way I think most sellers look at it, like that.
Well, I mean, I'm not as convinced as you. I'll be honest. I don't know what it's going to do to the industry. I don't have that type of crystal ball. But as far as from an agent perspective, yes, a buyer's agent will have to sell their services. They will now have to give that buyer a reason for employing them and
Mm-hmm.
being
Mm-hmm.
paid to represent them, because they will still need representation, because there's so many things that go along in a sale, that they may still need that representation. So it just becomes a value proposition. So yeah, the buyers representation will have to sharpen that pencil, and they have to sharpen their knowledge, and they have to be on top of their game to sell their services on why it's important to still have that representation. I think also, there are some things that concern me, and that's more because one of the things we always talk about is getting into the real estate market. That's home ownership, and for those first time buyers that are on the edge as far as being able to afford a house, come up with a down payment, come up with closing costs, but now having to come up with another 2 to 3%, depending on what they negotiate, is going to be a challenge for some first time buyers. And that's where my concern is.
Mm-hmm. Well, that may be until such time they get accustomed to it. But again, from my perspective, I just don't see that. I mean, the challenge being that, okay, as a buyer, it's always buyer beware. So you're incumbent upon hiring your own attorney. You can't use the seller's attorney to represent you. So why are you trying to, yeah, you need to be able to have your own representation. But I'm looking at this buyer agent there, and I think you just said it. That's going to be the hurdle. Buyers agents have got to justify their fee.
Mhm.
Why is it that what are you doing for the seller? I mean, the home buyer, that they can't do on their own. Number one, I mean, heck, if you got a seller who can sell his house on his own, a buyer should be able to find one on their own. But here's the other point I'm talking about. If I got a listing agent, well, there's going to be a sign on the property. So you, as a buyer's agent, all you did, you found a sign. You didn't even find the house. You were riding by, oh, there's a house. Looks like Mr. and Mrs. Jones might like that house. And you should be paid for that. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Jones should be paying you for that, because my selling agent, that's who I pay the commission. I pay him to do just that, to attract a buyer. The sign is not to attract another agent. The sign is to attract a buyer anyway. Okay. So now, if your services, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer Agent, are so profound that the seller wouldn't have found this house without your diligence and riding up and down the street or whatever, they would not have found this house on their own by going to Keller Williams' website. They wouldn't have found this house on their own. Then, all right, maybe your services may be needed. But with the websites and all these other AI things that's on available to us now in the marketplace of consumers, it's going to be hard to justify that. And if you do justify a fee, should it be equal to what the selling agent did? Because the selling agent's got to put up expenses. That advertising is not free. That sign is not free. So a selling agent has more skin in the game than a buyer's agent. The seller's agent has gone in their pocket first to market that property and all that other stuff. The buyer agent ain't spent nothing but some gas. Talking about, here's the kitchen, here's the living room. It's going to be a hard sell.
No, I disagree with that, and I don't know, because I focus a lot on being a buyer agent, and I know I provide more value than just being a Uber driver. As far as you're saying, just finding that, there's a lot of time and effort that goes into, and then once they find the house, there's a lot of time and effort going into finding the right person to do the inspection, to make sure the paperwork is right, to make sure they're getting what they deserve as far as maybe a home warranty and things of that nature. There's a
Mhm.
lot of things that go into being a buyer's agent than just showing up and showing a house. You've
Okay, so
got
do you believe that the seller should pay you that?
No, I think the law is the law. I mean, once they agree on this in July, the law is going to be the law. I don't disagree with you on that. Okay,
Oh, okay. All right.
no,
So
there's
it's
no
no
disagreement.
problem for the buyer's
I
agent
mean,
to pay the buyer.
we're what they say, the horse is already out of the barn. I mean, this has pretty much already been decided. So it's not up
Yeah.
to me and to say if this is right or wrong. I think it's up to me at this point to justify, why a agent is still needed, to just to explain to the community that's listening that no, this is not going to hurt the market. It's not going to hurt sales. It's not going to hurt the ability to find homes. It's just going to be adjustment to the way we're doing it now, and that's something that happens in our industry. But like I said, there are some concerns. As far as my concerns are more from a buyer's perspective and the ability to come up with that additional percentage and how that's going to be addressed and how it's going to be warranted. Because think about it, if I'm if I'm qualifying you for a loan, I never necessarily see what your buyer's broker agreement said and how much you're going to pay for that service. So when I approve you for a certain amount, and you basically that may change the debt to income ratio, as far as now you've got to pay an additional 3%. So here again, it's going to be up to that buyer's agent to share that percentage with whoever's providing the mortgage up front, so they can add that in also as another line item, so that it's not a surprise at closing that these folks got to come up with another 1%, 2%, or 3%, or whatever's negotiated. So it's going to be a lot of communication. The other thing is, it's going to be some communication between the two agents, because my understanding is the MLS will no longer show a commission at all. So you're going to have to call that agent and say, are you uh, willing to pay the buyer's agent anything, and that's going to be yes, no, or
It
this percent.
depends.
Yeah,
It's
it
always
depends. So
depends.
that's going to be a here we're going, and that could be a good thing, because here again, more communication. So you just have to look at this and how this thing is going to develop and how you're going to negotiate and how it's going to go through the waters. But here
Well, here,
again, our opportunity is to let our audience know that this is coming, and there are some workarounds, and it's not going to be the end of the it's not going to be the end of the real estate world.
oh, absolutely not. But here's what a buyer's agent is going to have to be careful of. There's a law against steering. Okay, in every state, in every county, you can't steer a potential home buyer to another property because you're going to get a higher commission.
True.
Okay, there's a law against that. So,
Absolutely.
so buyers, again, you got to justify your value. It's
Mhm.
incumbent upon the
Agree.
buyer's agents now, and I think that's where all the going to be the hiccup. That's where all the pushback from whatever agents that are tepid or concerned about that, because now you got to justify your value. That's
Right.
all. And then
Oh,
if
I
by
agree.
doing that, there shouldn't be any problem doing it. If you, like you said, you know the value that you bring
Mhm.
when if you're going to engage in a buyer contract, then that's not your that won't be a problem for you. But for the for majority of them jokers out there, that's going to be a real issue. And I'm all
Like I
about
said,
that.
I can't speak to that. I'm not sure how that's. I
I'm
can only
telling
take
like
care of
it
my
is.
home, so I don't know about the rest of them out there.
Yeah,
But if
I'm
there's
telling
less agents, that's mean there's more opportunity for me.
more opportunity. I'm not a licensed agent anymore, and I'm glad I'm not because I don't have to. So for what the things that I do in real estate, I don't have to be. So, but at the point I'm trying to make here is that it's going to make it better. The real estate is going to be a much more lucrative industry. Okay, people are going to close more transactions. They're going to make a whole boatload more money. And for those who are professional, okay, professional realtors. Okay, I'm talking about the professional. Y'all hear me? The professionals probably ain't even listening to this unless they're in their car on their way to another appointment. Okay, a listing appointment. But the professional agents out there, they're not saying a word. Hey, hey, bring it because we control most of the market anyway because they're listing. All right, it's those other folk out there that's, just, oh, I'm a buyer's agent. I got these services and stuff. But man, doggone it, you're going to have to justify them now. And I look at that cost, George, as just another cost of doing business. I mean, heck, if the bank says, and we've seen this before, you may get approved today. Today is April 2nd at an X rate, 1 point for your loan origination, stuff like that. And you close on April 30th, everything that's changed. Okay, you find out you got to pay 1.5 versus a point. Is that going to kill your deal? It could.
You could. Yeah.
Okay, so the same thing, you got to factor that in. What's your closing cost? Every astute professional agent usually sits their buyer down and say, "Here's your closing costs." Okay, and what they are kind of hoping that the buyer does, the person don't see it. And here's my fee for that cost. Well, no, put it up top. Have confidence in your ability. Have confidence, like you say, in the value proposition that you bring to that transaction.
Oh yeah. So I
Defend the
mean,
fee
oh, absolutely. I mean, you got to
up,
have these conversations early on when
up
when
front.
you meet a prospective client. You're going to have to tell them that, these are my services. This is what I'm providing, and this is what it's going to cost.
Bingo.
So up front, they know that because you can't, and that's one of the things that, I always try to do is get my buyer's broker agreement signed up front. I'm not showing you a house unless I have an agreement. And on that agreement, it has the percentage in which, I'm going to be compensated. So,
There you go.
there's a lot of agents out here that don't do that. They
Well,
wait
see,
until they find the house and they say, "Oh, by the way, Mr. Customer, you need to sign this buyer
those are
broker
the ones
agreement."
that's going to get rid
Those
of
are the ones that get in trouble.
it.
Yeah,
Bye.
yeah.
Because look here, it's the seller's agent that does all the negotiation for the fee to begin with. The buyer's agent tagging along with that. Okay, how much of the fee did you get? Well, hell, the selling agent the listing agent had to negotiate that fee. The buyer's agent wasn't nowhere around. Okay, but you're gonna parachute in and split that fee. Oh, heck to the no. That mess gotta stop. Okay, if the listing agent can negotiate his or her fee, then doggone it, the buyer agent need to be able to negotiate his or her fee with the buyer. I see that just as clear as day. Okay, so I don't even know what all the pushback is about. Buyer's agent become lazy because the negotiating has already been done. Okay, that's a disgrace to the seller's agent, the listing agent. I got to split my fee with you. I done went over and negotiated a fee. Now I got to split it with you because what? You saw my sign?
Well, I
Get
think
out of
so.
here.
Well, I hear what you're saying, Serena, but I think there's still going to be some level of conversation from a seller perspective because here again, you want to take advantage of every opportunity out there. So it may still behoove you to offer some type of percentage to that agent to get a good agent. I mean, get good buyers coming in. I mean, there's always that, okay, I'm going to offer zero and then let's see who comes and looks at my house. But you go 2-3 weeks and nobody comes, you may have to adjust your strategy. So I don't know if it's as cut and dry as you say, especially at the beginning here of this, once this thing goes into effect. So there's still, I think, going to be some trial and error in how this thing's going to be approached. So like I said, if the law is going to be the law, things are going to change. That's evident. How the community reacts is going to be something totally different, and I'll be out there just to see, just like everybody else.
Well, I see this is that as a seller, as a listing agent, that if I'm a seller and I hire you to list my property, I'm expecting you to sell it because I could put my property on PoopNet or Zillow, my doggone self, and advertise it. Okay, so if you put my property out there and somebody from XYZ company buys it, I'm really not all that thrilled. Okay, I'm going to have more respect for your service as a listing agent because you found a buyer. You didn't find an agent with a buyer. You found a buyer. Okay, so yeah, you justified your fee. You listed the property, listed my house, 30 days or less. Hopefully, you come back with a qualified buyer because so many deals. And here's another thing: this thing about the buyer's agent don't want you to talking to the seller's agent, and you can't, have these discussions about whatever. See, that secretive mess. That's another thing that muddles up real estate transactions. Okay, because you both have two different agendas. The buyer's agent is look, you know,
So are you thinking that the seller's agent should represent both? Is that
to
what I'm hearing?
represent both. Of
Both? Yeah.
course, the seller's agent knows about the deal.
Really? Yeah,
Yeah, the
but
buyer agent don't know about the deal.
the
The
only
listing
problem.
agent knows more about that deal than the buyer's agent knows about
Yeah,
that deal.
but the only problem with that is the from a seller's perspective, he treats him as a client. If he's bringing in a buyer, he can't treat him as a client. There has to be a
He's
distinction.
not a client. He's not a
Right.
client
So
to you
you
and
so you
sold
so
it.
you're not you're not getting his 100% attention. His attention and his
Well,
alliance is to the seller, not to the buyer. So I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but those situations, I don't think that's the best for
well, if I
the
put it like
client.
this, if you're a listing agent, I want to know before you see this listing I got that you're qualified to buy it.
Oh,
Number one,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah, I'm not
Okay.
gonna as a buyer,
So
as a
now I'm going to take you
resident of.
through that process. I'm going to take you through that process. Are you financed? Da da da. Where are you? With all this other stuff? Okay,
Oh,
I'm going to
absolutely.
ask the question that probably half that buying agent is not going to ask because they think they got a client. You don't have a client, doggone, until they buy something. So in the buyer's agent's mind, this is my client. Well, you
No,
didn't ask the right question, and then
no,
that's how a lot of deals blow up at closing
no.
because
No,
discovery.
no.
No,
That's not no. You before you make an offer on a house, you got that person has to be approved, hopefully underwriting approved, already funds verified. I mean, you don't want to go into a deal making an offer and then there's still a lot of questions as far as can this person buy that. I'm
and
not saying
that's
it
why I
doesn't
said the
happen.
listing agent. That's why I'm just pro listing agent, pro seller. Buyer agent. Well, until you can justify that, all this, everything else. Because I've seen so many closing blow up, and the buyer say, "Well, I didn't know this, or I didn't know it." So you didn't educate your buyer not to go out and buy that new Cadillac before we close. Okay, okay, all right. Well, I didn't know they were going to buy. Well, see, that's not a good answer for me. If
No, it's
you
not a good
if I'm
answer.
the seller and
No.
we all set to close and now they can't close because you didn't know or you didn't tell them not to go buy the Cadillac. Either one of them is a crappy but excuse. Control
Yeah,
your client, Mr. Buyer Agent, if you're going to close. And
yeah.
most buyers agents don't have, they got about as much control over the daggone client as I do over the daggone universe.
Well,
That's my
Smitty,
opinion.
I think we kind of got an idea how you feel about this. It's been another exciting
Get rid
episode of the
of
Crotchety Old Man. Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and let's hopefully all the deals don't go that way.
them.
Sounds like you've had
Well,
some pretty crappy deals out there, so we're gonna hopefully that doesn't continue. But anyway,
yeah.
as we always do on the Crotchety Old Men, I mean, where you can see us on YouTube and as far as all the other podcast platforms, we're always going to leave you with some words of wisdom. So, what you got for us, Mr. Smitty, today?
Well, this is from former Secretary of Treasury. No, Janet Yellen. I think she still is the Secretary of
She
Treasury.
is.
The U.S. economy has never worked fairly for Black Americans. I don't know where that come from, but that's her quote.
Is that the end of the quote?
That was the end of the quote.
Oh, wow.
The U.S. economy has never worked fairly for Black Americans. Secretary Treasurer Janet Yellen.
I don't know if that's a good way to end the podcast or
Yeah,
not.
I found that and I said, yeah, I don't like that one as well. But I went right to her, and I'm thinking, why did I go right to her? So, in all fairness to our audience, let's see if we can't come up with a better one. I like
Yeah,
this one
because
better.
I think that's one you already know. You don't have to say if you didn't know. You already know. You already know.
We already tell us something that we don't know, right? So
Didn't
here we
tell us
go.
anything we didn't already know.
I think you can appreciate this one. I am always willing to learn, and the tombstone will be my diploma. Now that was by Eartha Kitt.
There you go.
Yeah,
Much better. And as we
amen.
always say on the Crotchety Old Man, if you didn't know,
Now
now
you
you
know.
know. Take care. Be safe.
Peace.